good evening, and welcome to my name is Yvette Jones Swanson. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I want to thank the governor of Radio, Cliff Kelly, co founder, U.S. Army Vietnam veteran, for asking me, of all people, to take this seat and to share with you all my story and the stories behind why I was invited to sit on this prestigious live introduction. My name is Yvette Jones Swanson, and I am a U.S. Army veteran. And that's actually where the story began, is me being a U.S. Army veteran at the age of 18. And I'm going to ask you all to get something to write with and to write on, because what you're going to hear, unless you watch the replay, you're going to want to remember what I have to say. It's a phenomenal story. I grew up a normal girl with 9 brothers and sisters. Yeah, you heard me. It was 10 children. And I'm number 9 out of 10. And out of 10 siblings, well, 9 siblings, 6 of us are military, and I'm the only girl. Imagine that. And all of my brothers are Marines. My great uncle was in World War II, and I had to look on the mantle every day growing up at my brothers in their regal attire, in their uniforms, in their dress. They were black and white, so I don't know if they were dress reds or dress blues. I think uh, the not the army, the Marines is red, right? Dress red. So, and I had to see my brothers, and my brothers were my protectors. So I always thought that the military is a place where people go and come out just wonderful, and they've served their country and they protect everybody, and that's how I felt. And I went to the army and I still felt that way. At 18, I enlisted in the US Army unbeknownst to my parents, and I also enrolled in college at the same time. I wanted to do both. And I did have the opportunity of doing both. When I went to the Army, everything was wonderful until that dreaded incident, not just one, I believe it was 3 times, experiencing military sexual trauma. Yeah. I get out on a medical and come home and met a guy who I married. He was a Marine. I'm like, yes, a Marine like my brothers. He's not going to harm me. But he did. And I was a wife of domestic violence, and I ran away several times. Write this down. I stopped at number 7 because every time I would run away, I became homeless. So I was an unsheltered, a homeless female veteran going to the VA and never getting a resolution or the help that I needed as a homeless female veteran. Sleeping in my car, on the train, at friends' houses. And one friend said, "Oh, Yvette, my boyfriend, he's coming over, so you have to go." And not ever having anywhere to go. Those were some scary times for me as a young female veteran. And it's still happening today. So when I was able to leave that awful situation, I had a job at the city of Chicago, Department of Revenue, in which I was the licensing rep over, get this and write this down because this is part of the story. SRO, single room occupancies. And I'm thinking to myself, when we're visiting these single room occupancy buildings from the north side, the south side, west, and east, there are over 200 buildings. And the reason this story is so impactful is because there was a fire that took place downtown Chicago in the Paxton Hotel, in an SRO that nobody really cared about or knew about because it was like under the radar. It wasn't an apartment building and it wasn't a hotel. It was just an SRO, small room. But the significance in that is I thought about when I was homeless, if I had known about these small rooms and they were $350 to $500, I could afford something like that. I could work a part time job and stay in college. But I didn't know. Hmm. So I said, I like that. I left the city and I became a realtor. And as a realtor, I managed a lot of properties. 1,100 as an assistant property manager, 633 as a property manager. And that's where I started meeting people like me, people who, veterans, who were homeless, unsheltered, who had things that happened to them in the military, who really didn't have a place to go. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'd never had these conversations with anybody. I thought I was alone on an island as a former military sexual trauma victim, as a former domestic violence victim, as a former homeless female. I'm meeting people like me, and I have the ability to do something about it. I had 633 apartments to rent. I said, they need this. Everybody needs a place to live. Why not veterans? So it's been my mission for the past 21 years as a female veteran, as a realtor. I've been a realtor with Real People Realty for 11 years. I've been a realtor for 26 years, and 21 of those years I have been serving in the veteran community. I've housed over 5,000, write it down, over 5,000 homeless veterans, and they're still coming. Listen, if I get any way, just know that because I was a homeless veteran, I take it very personal when a homeless veteran comes to me for housing. I counted a couple nights ago because I have to write referrals to Jesse Brown VA, in which I have a what's called a memorandum of understanding. It's a contract where I take a team every single month on the fourth Thursday of the month to Jesse Brown VA and teach veterans how to use their VA home loans. We have a VSO that comes, we have lenders that come, we have attorneys that come, insurance agents, everything that we need as a human being to live and just be more than a survivor, be a thriver. Out of those 5,000 plus homeless veterans, a lot of them have become first time home buyers. That's the most amazing thing. I took them through the same course that I went through, that rocky road of military sexual trauma, domestic violence, homeless, I stayed in the YWCA for homeless females. Then I rented my first apartment, purchased my first house, purchased multi unit properties myself, and became a business owner. Well, guess what? My team and I do the same thing for veterans who come our way. It's just the right thing to do. I've been called um, many things for doing that. It's just an unwavering spirit that I have as a veteran to make sure nobody is left behind. So I go back and I keep going back. So this is where we are today, and I want to thank you all for watching. My name is Yvette Jones Swanson, and I am an Army veteran. I am a mother and a wife and a sister to many. I'm the founder and CEO of a not for profit called 100 Pretty Purses for Female Veterans. And we are celebrating our 10th annual this December 2024. And the commissioner, Donna Miller of Illinois, Cook County, will be giving me as a proclamation for the works that have been done in the organization over the past 10 years. So we have a party every year just celebrating female veterans, 100 plus female veterans, because there's no way we can turn away 10. Okay, we've got room. Just move that table over there. That's literally what happens. But you have to register, and you can register on Eventbrite. Just look up 100 Pretty Purses for Female Veterans. I'm also a military relocation professional by the National Association of Realtors, and I also teach that to other realtors who want to service our veteran community simply because we need more. I wrote a plan, and that's how I was able to house and educate other realtors who joined me to house over 5,000 homeless veterans. I mean, y'all, I do a whole lot. And people ask me that, how do you do all of that? And, I don't do anything else. This has become my life. And it's become my life because I wanted to live. In serving this veterans community, I had a heart attack. For real, y'all. I had a heart attack. And the female veteran who I housed while I was on the hospital bed, working out her purchase contract, and the nurse came in, you shouldn't be doing that. You know what? I'm getting ready to house a female veteran who was once homeless, buy a house. God didn't keep me, so I still have work to do. That's my attitude about things. I still have work to do in this community. We have work to do in this community. Oh, so I am the founder and CEO of 100 Pretty Purses for Female Veterans. That's a not for profit organization. I'm also the CEO of Vet Mentors, and Vet Mentors, wow, takes care of a whole lot of veterans because I had to take care of myself. And that's why I do this consistently every single day. And it's gotten to the point where there's a shortage of housing, um, of affordable housing. There's a shortage of rentals. There's a shortage of everything. And then when you add in homeless veterans, now who are you going to choose? Somebody with some money or a homeless veteran who's coming with a HUD VASH voucher? Who are you going to choose? I don't want this headache over here. That's what a lot of investors say. That's what a lot of homeowners say. And that's discrimination in a whole lot of categories. Homeless veterans are people. Some of the homeless veterans that I've housed, you can call them by name, Dr. Carla Ayanzo. Dr. Carla Ayanzo stood over me in the hospital when I was suffering from COVID-19 pneumonia and had a near-death experience and came back. Dr. Carla Ayanzo was standing over me, and I looked up when I came back. I looked up at her, and I said, "Are you my angel?" And she said, "No, Yvette, it's Dr. Carla." Dr. Carla, when she found me 6 years ago, told me I was her angel when I housed her 10 years ago with her 10-year-old daughter as a homeless female veteran who is also a mother. We became each other's angel through this process of housing people who just happen to be homeless veterans. That's what I do. I've got a whole bunch of certifications now. I worked hard for everything I do. And if you're just joining us, my name is Yvette Jones Swanson, and I've been asked to sit in this seat to educate some people and tell some stories of survival and hope and that there is a better future for you as a veteran no matter where you want to go as a human being. I am certified as a woman business enterprise, veteran owned small business, service disabled veteran owned small business. I also have a publishing company called Vet Mentors Publishing. I am with the city of Chicago, veteran owned business enterprise, woman owned business enterprise, minority business. So I take this seriously. When I say I am vet mentors, I am Yvette. I'm a vet and vet mentors. I can't go anyway without knowing what I do on a daily basis because it's in my name. There's a team of people who I want to thank for getting us here because another reason we're here is to announce that we have, well, initially I did, but now I've got a team who's pushing me up so we can do this together. We have presented a veterans village to the village of Pembroke, Hopkins Park, Illinois, in honor of Vietnam era veteran John E. Anderson. And this is the village, something like this. This village the plan has 60 houses for veterans to come and buy, brand spanking new, affordable housing. And we're looking for investors, we're looking for concerned citizens, sponsors of this show, because guess what? This is a sponsorship show. So if you all want to hear more about the amazing vet mentors, get in contact with the show to contact me so you can sponsor the show because there's so much I have to tell you and it's so little time. But hopefully, not a but, we'll be back to share those stories because this is one thing we have to do. Pembroke Hopkins Park, and do your research too, was part of the Underground Railroad when our ancestors were running away from their masters and ran to free land. Well, Hopkins Park was that free land. After the war, the military pulled out their funding, the government pulled out their funding, and this land right here went to ruins. And it's just very, desolate right now, but I say it's open for progress. It's open for progress. I want to leave you all with something. And that something is to take care of yourself first and foremost. You have to do that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. As a female veteran, I was real sick. I had a heart attack, COVID-19, pneumonia, and a stroke, and I couldn't walk for 6 months. 9 medications I had to take after the heart attack. I was a walking zombie. 9 medications the VA prescribed me after having the stroke and COVID. I said no because I couldn't walk as a zombie and I couldn't walk, period. I did the alternative, and that was the natural route. My position title on Memorandum of Understanding at Jesse Brown VA is Veterans Housing and Wellness Coordinator. And we have that meeting once a month on the fourth Friday of the month. And I've been conducting these workshops and seminars for 12 years now, 10 years at the Forest Park Vet Center, Chicago Vet Center, Chicago Heights Vet Center, the Correctional Office of Cook County, the Federal Correction Office, Prairie State College, the city colleges. Your girl has been around. So I have a lot of stories to tell you, a lot of success stories of homeless veterans who now are homeowners and property owners of multi units. You know how proud that makes me feel as a veteran and can go back to my brothers and sisters to help? That's a proud feeling. And I am honored once again to be here, to sit in this seat, to share those stories and to share any inspiration that I can give you all. So, this is a sponsorship show. And if you want more of me, Yvette Jones Swanson, then contact the show, contact us and let me know, and I'll be back. I really want to come back because there's so much to talk about. I already love y'all. We've got 1 minute. All right. Well, remember Pembroke Hopkins Park. I want to thank the mayor of Pembroke Hopkins Park, Mayor Mark. Let me get all of my names. Mayor Mark Anderson. No, I'm sorry, Mayor Mark A. Hodge. I also want to thank Senator of the 38th District, Debbie Myers Martin, for her wonderful letter of support, and Senator Michael Hastings for his wonderful letter of support. We have a lot of support behind the village, and we're looking for more supporters. So if you are an investor or an interested party who want to support this build, get in touch with us. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to
Hi, everyone. I am Treasure Owens, founder and CEO of Treazure, L.L.C. We go by Treasure Marketing. We are a certified minority business enterprise, woman owned small business, and service disabled veteran owned small business. We are also the founders of the Black Veterans Expo, which we just hosted June 21st. It was an amazing time. We had 3 panels. We had a panel on supply diversity programs with CTA, Director of Diversity, and DBE Liaison, Juan Pablo Preto. We had 3 service disabled, veteran owned small business owners on the panel with him. So we got to hear everything from multiple perspectives. We had Sean Redden of RS Solutions. We had who was Nathaniel Dillon of Dillon Management, and we also had Rashi Russell of Happy Hands Cleaning. So it was an amazing time. Rashi actually has had contracts with the CTA. So it was great to be able to hear all of those different perspectives on, like, okay, you have one person who is a leader in this program, and then you have one person who's been on the opposite end of it to share what that experience looks like to actually go through that program. So I thought that that was, something great to provide to the Black veteran community. Outside of that, we had a panel on homelessness, addressing veterans' homelessness and job security. So we had Sergeant First Class Gamu, Jade Gamu, fly out from DC, and he is the Western Deputy Director of Soldier for Life. So he got to talk about transitioning. We had Yvette Jones. She is a Army veteran. She's been working with homeless veterans for about, I think, a little bit over 20 years. So she's been helping them with housing, and she's actually building a development for veterans facing homelessness to find housing as well. So that was pretty awesome. And then we had Kevin Woods. He works at a workforce development center. So it was just nice to hear all those different perspectives just across the board. Several panels, several vendors, just great to have everyone in the same room with us so that we could support each other, learn from each other, and just build with each other. The reason that I started this whole journey of bringing us together, it actually really came by surprise, or at least to me. I think that God kind of like puts us on these trajectories and on these paths, and you just never understand exactly where He's going with it until you're like smack dead in the middle of it. Like, I'm born and raised south side of Chicago. I really always knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur. My dad, just growing up in his house, I would say this: the outcome of what my life was supposed to be, I just don't even know. Like, I just feel like things are just going in his favor and his direction, and I'm just going with the flow at this point. But my dad, he used to rent out his rooms to just people traveling all throughout the United States. He didn't have the most regular background. My dad was actually a drug dealer, so like it was just a mess. But he owned a lot of property, so I got just a better understanding of like what it meant to be an entrepreneur, regardless of how you got there. And that's why I do believe, even when coming together with different entrepreneurs, I just feel like there's multiple roads to the same destination. I understand that some ways are legal and some are not. And I do follow the legal path, but that's pretty much what I learned from him. Just entrepreneurship, how to collect rent, how to count up money, just all of those different things. So I feel like I really gained that from him. And then I was in this program, Ladies of Virtue, and they just really taught me about like public speaking. We did what do we do? We had like dining and etiquette classes. So I'm still trying to map out how we even got to this road myself. But I'm just like, okay, I'm just again going with the flow and just figuring out where God is taking me with all of this. But I did all that. I went into marketing in high school. So I was just joining all kind of different clubs. Um, I was always just trying to go for the marketing position though, like being the marketing manager. I was in theater. I knew that I wanted to be in front of the camera. And then I don't know, at some point, I just started to get a little bit more introverted and started to like being behind the scenes more and just learning in that way, or just presenting, what I knew in that capacity. Like, I would just rather build someone up before I built myself up. And so that's the way that I just kind of like continue to support. But went into the military, served for about 6 years as an intelligence analyst. It was a great time. I got to travel. I went to Korea. I went to Europe. And I had a great time, but I also was, I don't even know, just again, God gets very creative. So He just had me going through some trials and tribulations. But once I got off, I went to the North Carolina National Guard. Um, and I was not having the best transition. I did not come out prepared. I do think that military transitioning can either be a dream or a nightmare, and it really just depends on if you had a strategy or not. And for me, I just didn't have a strategy. So, I fell on my behind a little bit. But one thing about it is that all of those different experiences congregated together to where I am now. So I respect every stage of my life and how it all came together. And I really enjoy what I do to this day. Right now, I'm working with a client, the National Veterans Art Museum, and I'm really excited to be working with them. Um, I just started working with them like a couple days ago. We actually had our first call this week, and it was pretty nice. It was a very diverse team, which I was happy to see, of course. But outside of that, we just flowed in conversation, and that's the biggest thing for me. Can we flow in a conversation when I'm working with anybody? Can we flow in a conversation? Can I get behind what you're doing as far as like, are you building something up based off of your purpose? Because that's what I feel like my purpose in life is, to either help others live in their purpose through their own ventures or by supporting someone else's venture. So that's also part of the reason why we built the expo and the way that we did as well. Because I have been working with GRTC and ROTC students, helping them out with marketing skills and things like that, so that they could transition into working with veteran owned small businesses, even if they were to go in the military or not. Whatever that path looks like for them, they could still have that mentorship. And also find gainful employment along the way. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what I would love for you guys to walk away with. I would say the biggest thing here, just based off of my story and just all the ways that it has moved in a fluid manner, I would say, again, really just harping on that there's multiple roads to the same destination. You never want to get hyper focused on this is the way to get there. When I think about the food industry specifically, there's a couple of veterans in Chicago that I think of. So, like, let's say we're looking at Dion Dawson, right? He has Dion Chicago Dream. It's a nonprofit. I don't know how much they touch a year as far as like funding, but I know it's going up more and more. And the biggest lesson that he taught me was to follow the money, like look at impact reports, read their annual reports and things like that. And that really helped me figure out, okay, where do I want to position my business? But even outside of that, you could go, off of what you think that you're the best at, but you just never know what direction life is going to take you into. So sometimes, you might have a plan in mind and it'll take you somewhere else. But he, I just really like the way that he's going about what he's doing. He's actually fighting food insecurity. So he's been speaking up against, big corporations and talking about food deserts within the South Side Chicago community. Um, and just really putting himself out there. I love the fact that like no matter how many times he gets told no, he always gets back up and just is like on LinkedIn, like, hey, does anybody know this person who could give me an in, have a conversation? I just want to speak to them so I can share my story and I can go from there. And I think that every time he's done that, from my understanding, I think that he has gotten what he was looking for. But let's take him and then let's take Trez Pugh of Sip and Savor. So he owns Sip and Savor. It's a franchise. And he started that franchise on his own versus somebody who may have started a franchise based off of like some other company. Like we have a couple veteran owned FedExes around Chicago. And then PostNet, Shorewood is Black veteran owned as well. So just like thinking about that. So he has a food based company versus Dion, who has a food based company, for instance. They're both successful, but they're just successful in different ways, but it's still along the same path or at the same destination. So that's the biggest lesson that I would say I've learned, and that I would want someone who was watching me and trying to gain inspiration or was already finding inspiration in my story and, the things that I've been able to produce. Um, that's what I would want them to know. Another thing that I would say that has really helped me is really just Roger that. Roger that is like a phrase that we use in the military. It just basically means like I understand or okay, let's carry on. I think emotional intelligence is really the biggest thing when it comes to entrepreneurship. That's one of those things that a lot of people don't have down pat. It doesn't matter how old you are. It really just depends on the amount of experiences that you have. And it's definitely one thing that I had to learn myself. Um, I don't I always sit back and think about it. I don't really recall any of the conversations that I kind of grew up having in my mom's household, or really with my dad that we really talked about emotional intelligence. If anything, my dad would just kind of be like, whoever's going to forgive you, they'll forgive you. And then, whoever doesn't, then just get around people who celebrate you. But that was coming from somebody who was always doing something wrong. So it wasn't really helpful advice of just like, okay. But I do agree with that, go around people who celebrate you. But outside of that, you got to be able to just say, Roger that. Somebody's take you out of your element, Roger that, and carry on. Go on with your life. Don't sit there and argue with people. Don't try to be right when the argument is going on. It's about mostly, do you want to continue on with that relationship or do you want to be right? And for me, that was a very hard lesson to learn because I am definitely the type to be like, I just want to be right. Like, no, I'm right in this situation. You're wrong. But that's really not the way to go. Yeah, Roger that. Roger that. Things go left. Roger that. Okay, what am I on the path to learning right now? And just taking it for what it is. I think that that's kind of the biggest thing, looking at things at face value and not necessarily reading too far into it as well. Um, I'm trying to think of, I would say the third lesson that I feel like has really helped me along this entrepreneurship journey. Let me think for a second. The most impactful thing that somebody has said to me, really, what's coming up for me right now is a conversation that I had with a guy named David Ramajan. Now, if y'all don't know who David Ramajan is, he actually owns a construction company. I think he owns a couple construction companies actually, but I know he sold one of them at least. And he was working around the O'Hare area. So I don't know if that's still an operating business or not, but he broke something down into the sharpshooter's blueprint. And I can't wait for this book to come out. I don't know if it has come out yet or not, but I reached out to him probably like a year ago. And I know that it hadn't come out. So I remember, I'm gonna paint the picture for y'all. I found this man. I think I was just like looking for Black veterans around the city of Chicago. I think I found him just kind of like DMing people on LinkedIn. And that's one thing I love to do. I love to put myself out there. Just put yourself out there, DM people randomly. I DM'd somebody from NASCAR from this past weekend. It was like, hey, I want to meet with you. Or like, if you're going to be here this weekend, I'd like to meet with you. Like, I was just like DMing random agents. Like, and one of them actually connected with me this morning. He's like, "Oh, what did you want to talk about?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't have a plan in mind." Like, I didn't say it to him. I haven't responded yet, but I'm just like, I just want to put myself out there because my biggest thing was like, okay, I know I want to work with NASCAR. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but maybe you have some answers for me since you're already working with them in some type of capacity. What can I do to serve you? That's the biggest thing there. But even keeping that in mind, let's take a step back and let's walk into David Ramajan's office. I pull up to his office. I'm covered in dog hair because I just have a shedding dog. I have a mini Australian Shepherd covered in dog hair. I'm just in the bathroom, just getting everything off myself. I go into his office and I remember the first thing that I saw on his wall were his credentials. I saw his credentials and I saw a picture with him and a president. And I saw a picture with him and somebody else that looked like really familiar. I'm like, okay, these are important people. The main thing that I got from that was like, oh, this is a more important person than anything that I could have possibly read on him online. Because the mostly of what I saw online, I was like just looking up like if I could find any impact reports or like just anything with his name on it. Like I was doing Boolean searches to see if I could find this man or find out more about this man. Because I think that he like DM'd me back on LinkedIn and that's how we got connected. So I'm in this man's office. He starts talking to me. And he's just like going down the line, like telling me about his career. He was in the Marines. He, made millions of dollars. He sold his company, and just like talking about like how the new guy was, taking over the company and things like that. And just really how to take over a room when you're in the room and just really just confirming everything that like I was like maybe reading online. not necessarily coming from him, but just about going about business in general. Like when you read the book, what is it called? Uh Friends and Influence People. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I haven't read that book all the way, but I remember when I was coming from North Carolina to Chicago, and I knew, okay, I'm not doing well here. I've been down here for a year. I'm still basically borderline homeless. I can't find a job. And I was just like listening to all kind of audio books. But I remember kind of listening to that one a little bit and just taking some of the lessons, like, when you're having a conversation, you need to be more interested in that person than just talking about yourself, but anyways, he was just talking about those different things. He was talking about, how to basically position yourself um in an experiential marketing kind of way, if that makes sense. Like when you think of experiential marketing, it's about smell, taste, sight. What do you look like when you're coming into the room? I'm not gonna say I look the best as I have in the past. I think I got to get my wardrobe back up. But, those different things about yourself when you first step into a room, because before anybody knows your personality, they see you. So whatever you look like, that's what they're going to take it for. They're going to take it for face value. Like we always say, don't judge a book by its cover, but that's what we do. And so he was just, when he was talking about the sharpshooter's blueprint, it was all about those different things. Like, how do you take a look at the assets that you have in your life right now, to be able to position them? He was talking about like friends, family. How do you manage your money? How do you, God, if I could map, I have the image in my face right now. I can't remember all the different categories that he had, but just essentially kind of catering your life in a very strategic manner. Like he set that up on purpose. When I walked into his office and I saw those faces of those very important people, he did all that strategically. So when you walk into that room, you say, wow, this man is taking pictures with presidents. Who is this man? You know what I mean? Even if it was something that happened in passing. I don't know if it happened in passing. I'm just saying, like for me, probably one of the most important people who I've met was the Illinois governor. And I only met him because I was down in Springfield. I was working with the Veterans Chamber of Commerce. I'm their marketing director. And we were down there to talk to Senator Mike Porfirio, because I was trying to like host it. Well, I ain't gonna say we were trying to host this event at the Union League Club of Chicago. The event hasn't happened. It was supposed to happen in June. It was actually supposed to happen in June, the same day of the Black Veterans Expo, but that didn't happen. So then that was one of the reasons why I was like, okay, well, this date is up now. I'm gonna do this event now. But anyways, we're down there. We're talking to the senator and all of that, and a lot was just going wrong. Like things was just going wrong, back to back. And sometimes, when things are going wrong, you start to think like, okay, this is a sign that I need to stay home or stay wherever I am. But sometimes, the universe is just working in your favor. God is just working in your favor to make certain things happen. Like he's doing that on purpose for a reason. And I think that reason was so that we could walk outside and meet the governor, because that's exactly how that happened. We took a picture with him, and I remember like everybody was just calling me, just calling on my phone, like, how did you meet the governor? How do you know the governor? I'm like, I don't know. He was cool. Yeah, he was a cool guy or whatever. But yeah, essentially just I'm putting that picture up on my wall. I would say that, yeah, just strategically live your life. Always roger that, and face forward, eyes up, chin up. Keep going. Nice to meet you guys.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable Live, and this is the digital media show for AHG. July is American Diabetes and National Minority and Mental Health Awareness Month. Today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I'm Sean Clamer, your host, the vet on the set, Army National Guard veteran. We have a partner with us today, and that is none other than U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver, Keisha L. Jackson. That is right, and this is her theme music. She's going to be talking about some important things today. We're going to be doing some things that we have been talking about in the past, and that is updates on family caregiving, things you need to know, things that make your life better, things you can do, how much you give care to people that you love. How you doing, Keisha?
Fine, Sean. How are you?
Pretty good. So tell us, what is new in your world?
Well, a lot is new in my world in terms of family caregiving. I was checking my feed the other day, and I got something came up on my feed that was actually very disturbing. And I guess it goes right in hand with this being Mental Health Awareness Month. I saw a headline where a nurse had admitted to trying to kill 19 patients. And just always makes me think about our loved ones that are in residential facilities in terms of assisted living, rehabilitation places and nursing homes. And it just really, really disturbed me. And so one of the things that it made me, as I read it, it talked about how this nurse was injecting patients with insulin, and she was killing patients.
That's crazy.
Yeah, she wound up getting sentenced very heavily. She wound up getting sentenced very heavily. She was killed. She was injecting them with insulin, and some of them didn't even need insulin. And so it made me think about different things in terms of our loved ones in these different facilities, and wondering, should we have monitors in rooms of our loved ones that are in like assisted living and nursing homes and different things like that?
You would think that would be something that a patient would have the right to have for their own protection. I know that there is not that many states allow that. There's a lot of restrictions in different states. In the state I was born in, Maryland, I know that facilities can reject a family's request to have a camera in the room. But it just racks my brain to try to figure out, why would someone be motivated to do such a thing?
The craziest thing about it, when you're listening to some of the recordings of her, or what people said, or probably her lawyer was saying for her, is that she, in some ways, they feel like they're helping the person. They feel like they're helping the person if they're suffering. However, not everybody even needed insulin. I mean, this was just one person. This was a nurse that did this in Pennsylvania. She did it over, I think, a span of like 2 years. They wound up giving her 3 consecutive life sentences plus a consecutive between 380 and I think it was to like 760 years sentence.
But the crazy part about that though, Keisha, is that that's obviously she's never going to be able to serve that.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not necessarily an advocate for the death penalty or things like that. But I would hope that there would be some kind of, at least if nothing else, some kind of financial compensation for those families that are left to deal with the grief.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the families are just saying. I can't see how you could do this to my loved one. Someone were not even, well, really, some of them may have been in the hospital at one time, but they were on their way back to being well, or I should say going home. I mean, it wasn't just her. There was an article that I was reading about a lady named Rita Mays. She did this in a VA hospital in West Virginia. And she wound up, I think it was like 7 veterans that she wound up killing. The same thing, injecting them with insulin. And not all of them even needed insulin. And so here you have these families that are torn apart from such evilness, mental illness. She, the second lady that I mentioned, she was had been in the military herself. And then I was talking to someone about it. We were talking at work about this because the person, it's torn with going back and forth with should their father go into assisted living facility. And these are the things that makes you think, well, I kind of don't want him to go, but I may not have any choice because I have to work and I can't take care of my father full time.
Now, when you say that, I think about people that I've known who've gone into facilities, and there's a different ranges and spectrum of quality facilities versus facilities that are like, I hate to say it, but like these Medicaid facilities almost. I mean, they're just not on the same level. And unfortunately, most people cannot afford those $7,000 a month, $8,000, $10,000 a month facilities.
Yeah.
A lot of people have to go to the ones that they can afford or they can get aid, they can get public aid for. Do you have any idea or sense of, for the ones that tend to have these types of problems, is it more likely to happen in some of the lower quality facilities, or do we have to be worried about and cautious about the expensive ones also?
I think as a caution that we should just be cautious across the board. I have heard that for some of the facilities where it may be considered lower income facilities, that some of the people, the caregivers that actually work there, their thing is that they're working 2-3 different jobs. And sometimes they're working these, long hours. And the people in the facilities are mean to them as well, or they're cussing them out or spitting on them, or, and so they're saying, some of them feel like this is in self-defense for some of the different people at these situations. At some of the more expensive places, I would believe that it could be the same situation. It may be from a different perspective, but it probably could be the same situation, Now,
we're talking about also too being able to put in cameras inside the room. I'm reading an article. This is actually from a law forum, Law Garcia. He has a website up. It's lawgarcia.com. I'm not sure what state he's in, but he has gone through the different states which allow cameras under certain conditions inside facilities. So Illinois, Kansas, Louisiana, Minnesota, Missouri, New Mexico, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, and Washington State. So residents can request under certain circumstances to put or even family members to put a camera in the loved one's room to kind of watch and monitor the incidents, so to make sure they're getting the care they need. And it may not be something as catastrophic as murder, but bed sores, make sure they're being attended to. Are their diapers being changed? Things along those lines. And we hate to see our loved ones suffering, or even just being in a situation where they have to sit in their own urine or sit in their own dirty diaper. That's something that's humiliating and it's horrible that someone can have to go through that. What are some other things that people can do in the states where they don't allow cameras to try and protect their loved ones?
Well, if you're in that particular area, the best thing that you could do is be present and don't go at the same time. Don't get this routine, because people will be used to you coming there at that particular time, or maybe have another loved one or somebody else to go by and check. I have one of my aunts who's in a rehabilitation facility, and I call her like every day and we talk for about an hour. And so that allows me to have interaction, but I also have other cousins that check on her. One of my siblings lives close to her, so he'll spot check and go by. So when you do that, that's definitely helpful. But I've also been in places like that where I've gone maybe to sit with my aunt, and I've seen how some of the patients or the residents that are there may say something that's very mean. And so you have these two sides of it. But going back to that, the granny cam is what they call it, is what they're allowing is certain stipulations, and I think it may be based off of the state. You may be able to go into, you may be able to film, but it has to be visible. It has to let you know that this is being recorded. It has to be consent, especially if there's another roommate, or maybe they may turn it off at a time where the person is being bathed or cared for, or if the doctor's in there. So there's certain type of things where that may be going on in a room where they will want you to shut the camera off. So it is very difficult, because I've even seen videos of where there's been abuse to patients, or I keep saying patients, not necessarily hospitals, but in these facilities, have been like in the open vestibule area. And I saw this video of a lady that was in a wheelchair, and the caregiver was actually slapping her, and she hit her head up against the wall. She pulled her out of the chair onto the floor, and she was just really mean to her. I mean, so even if you have the cams there and people know, obviously it may not be recording in the room, but you know that there's going to be a camera right at that entrance where you're coming in. So how do we help our loved ones that are in these facilities? And even in some cases, how do we help the caregivers that are in these facilities as well, if they are being verbally abused?
Mm-hmm. And that is a very difficult job. And yeah, I've heard many cases and know people, and I've known friends that have been abusive to the people that are giving them care. And there's a stressful situation on both sides, because you're dealing with someone that may have dementia, that may have cognitive issues, that they will sometimes say ridiculous things, or say abusive things, or even try to hit you or hurt you or physically themselves, even though a lot of them are in not necessarily in the physical shape, but they can actually do a lot of damage to you because they're elderly, and a lot of times that's the reason why they're in a facility. But however, you would think that the states themselves would go in to do a better job of inspecting and doing their job to make sure that the facilities are up to snuff, and make sure they're doing the right things inside these facilities.
Well, I do know that when you go into these facilities, and I can't speak from a perspective of running a facility, but I have heard that if something like this is known, like if somebody is injecting a person with insulin, that then they don't necessarily want to publicize that, right? So they want to maybe fire that person and kind of ease them out the back door, So sometimes there may be some things that are going on inside a facility that they don't want known. There's sexual abuse in facilities. I was just learned about, there was a young man from Chicago, I think 22 years old, that went into a facility, and I don't know if it was someone that he knew, but this young lady is pregnant now, and they found out that it's his child. And so she's in this facility, and he went in there to her. I also had heard about a nephew had two aunts that were in a facility, and I guess they were sharing a room. And so what he was saying was that sometimes he would tell the staff that he wanted to be in the room with them with the door closed. Now, of course, to me, this is all alleged, because this is, when you hear things, you say it, but until it's proven.
Right.
They saying that he went into the room and he would close the door. So one time a staff member went into the room and saw that he was doing some things in that room with his aunts, or to his aunts. And so it's not always the staff. It could be family, it could be resident on resident. I've read reports where sexually transmitted diseases are very high in assisted living places and rehabilitation places and nursing homes like this. So it's not always the care provider that is responsible for this. And so it kind of still goes back to, should there be cameras in those rooms to maybe help mitigate or to cut out some of these potential things, or like you even said in the beginning, like with the bed sores or different things like that, or when valuables are come up missing or different things like that. So yeah, such an important question that really, do we know what the other states follow suit for that?
And I think you have a fundamental right as a family member. If I want to put it just like you would with a child, or you should have the right to stay with your parent. If you want to put your parent in a facility and put a camera in that room so that you can watch what's going on, that's your camera that you can see on your cell phone or see at home on your TV screen or whatever laptop, so you can watch and see. If I'm going to tune in at any given time, I can pop in at any given time. It doesn't, as a family member, they shouldn't be embarrassed to see their mother, their father, or their aunt, whatever, in a compromised position if they got to take a bath or take a shower or get undressed or dress. Because guess what? If they weren't in that facility, that's what they would be doing.
That's exactly right. And if they were home, they would be doing that. Exactly. If they was in the facility, and there is a way that you could probably point the camera, even if you have a shared room. So that would be a requirement that the camera would not be on the other individual, so that it can only see your loved one, which I believe it would be very, very helpful if that was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something that's really important that we have to get a handle on. And once again, I go back to what are the states doing to try to counteract this, particularly in states where they're not allowing cameras. To me, that just seems unfair to the family members who are spending a lot of money for these facilities, oftentimes, who are also, if they can't afford it, are using government money to pay for the care of people that are there. They have the right, and people have the right to make sure that these places are doing the right thing at all times.
Yeah,
there needs to be better oversight from the state level to inspect, audit, and check on how these facilities are giving care, even down to, if it takes, even making sure if they're measuring correctly, how many drugs did you order coming in on a monthly basis? What's the quantity of the injections and all the pills and things you have to give your residents? Who's going to take these pills? And did they take these pills? If there's a discrepancy in what's being ordered in and what's being used, those are things we can catch from accounting. Those are forensic things that we can catch from just basic accounting.
Yeah, I totally agree. The lady that I was reading about, I think her name was Rita Mays. She was the one that was in the VA hospital. She was an assistant nurse, and she was injecting insulin. So she wasn't even a nurse, and she was doing this. And I believe in the common area, there was not a security camera or a camera in the area where the insulin is being stored. And so there was no way to really go back into the records or go back and have a record to be able to say, to identify in that particular location. So I do believe that, I would like to believe anyway, for the most part, that facilities are trying their best to do the best. I do understand that a lot of places are understaffed. To me, because there's understaffed, there's another reason why it could be helpful to have cameras in the room, because if your loved one is in a room and you may not be able to get to them, if a loved one is seeing their loved one in a room, maybe they may be screaming, maybe they may be crying out, maybe they can call a different number and let you know. So it's all of these different things that are going on. But like you said, yeah, the states, the counties, the boroughs all have to be a part of this, connected with the family to see what we can do to help our loved ones in these particular places.
And definitely, we've had National Nurses United on our show many times. They have one of our partners have a regular spot on our podcast. One of the things they talk about is that there's a shortage of nurses nationally across from VA all the way to the civilian hospitals. Our government needs to, at the national level and at the state level, needs to really take that problem into serious consideration, because it's not fair for the uber wealthy. You can hire a private person to come in and take care of their family member in a home, because a lot of people, if they plan for it, they can save the money, they can buy long-term care insurance, they can do certain things and make sure that they can pay for their own care to come in and cover their make sure that their parent is being taken care of 24 hours a day. However, most people can't afford that and aren't able to do that. So this is a national emergency where you have the shortage of nurses and shortage of medical professionals. There has to be some kind of solution that we have the capacity, because we have a lot of unemployed people in this country still.
Unemployed.
We have a lot of people that are underemployed.
Well, this was so crazy because I found out by just doing a little research and looking at a couple of things on these people that were actually registered sex offenders were in some of these facilities. And these were some of the ones, not necessarily say they were the one that may be committing a sexual abuse to people, but they're living in some of these facilities because people have said that they have to have somewhere to live as well. And so you see people that there may be a camera even in an outside a room, but there have been people that know how to go through the fire escape area to go and sneak in the window and go. So all of these different things, which goes back to the beginning where when you talked about July being mental health awareness, because there obviously is something mentally wrong if you are sexually assaulting a 90-year-old woman or 86 or 83. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if you're 15 or 14 or, it's just wrong.
Right.
And so again, I believe like you having these cameras in these rooms, maybe there could be some stipulations that they put in. I just really believe with the shortage of nurses and the other things on staff that it really could help. I think it could help protect everybody.
Yes, definitely. Because then you have a record. But I think the reason facilities, to me, the obvious reason why they're not allowing these cameras in the rooms, and they've lobbied states to try and keep these cameras out of the rooms because they don't want to get sued. They don't want to get sued, but at the same time, they're worried. They know that there is a problem with the quality of care.
Yeah,
and they don't want to get caught with their pants down. Which is like. Probably bad choice of words, but I mean, they don't want to be caught with, the horrible things that we were talking about being seen on camera, because they know that can go viral very easily. And then it puts such a strong a weapon and tool in the hands of the patient.
Yeah.
If you have a camera that shows that somebody's being abused, I personally think if you know that that's there and you're an abuser, you're going to think twice about hitting somebody. You're going to think twice about sneaking in somebody's room.
Yeah, I think for some it would help, but for some, depending where they're at mentally, that may be fine for them. Or some people feel like they'll never get caught, or they feel like they're low staff, they're not going to say anything. I think what it will really help us more is because now the family is more aware of different things that are going on. Because
yeah, of course, yeah. But I think too that if that one person who has that mental instability, who decides that they're going to do it anyway, doesn't care about the camera, it's probably be the last time they get to do that.
Yeah,
which will go very far if this so happens they're on somebody's actually watching a live cam. We have cameras. We have cameras in our doorbells. We got cameras in all over our houses now. And you can go on Amazon and order whatever any surveillance system you want. You can spend $100 and get you a camera, put it on your front doorstep, wherever you want to put it, and you can see all these things. But I mean, so if this is that simple and easy to implement, that tool should be allowed to be used, and hospitals should not be allowed to deny someone, or a facility should not be allowed to deny someone access to putting a camera up and to watch their loved one.
Yeah, and when you think about it from the perspective of maybe a person may be temporary, but some people that is their home.
Right.
Money is being taken out of whatever, if it's direct pay, whether it's long-term care, that is their address, unless they should go back home or should they pass. Mm-hmm. And so now you're at your home and you're not allowed to have a camera in your house.
Mm. And I understand that there might be some HIPAA concerns, because people are concerned about HIPAA rules, HIPAA violations. And you might try to hide behind that as a reason why they would say, well, we can't just put a camera up because we're letting out medical information, things like that. That's not really the case, because a person can consent, a family member can consent, a power of attorney can consent to being on camera. You can, if the family member's in a facility, chances are you got power of attorney for that person. You can say, you know what, I want to have I'm signing off that I waive whatever the camera sees. I'm waiving that right to privacy. I want to make sure that I can watch my mother, my father, my aunt, whatever, being taken care of properly, and make sure that I can just tune in anytime I want to by just hitting my cell phone or hitting my computer and watching how they're being treated, things like that. And I have the right to pop in anytime I want to go take care and see my parent.
Yeah. And then on the other side of it, it's just, what if you're long distance it's just good for you. You may not be able to travel, or you may not be able to have a job where you can just go pop in or different things like that. So it has those other advantages as well. You may get to see your grandkids for the first time. It's all of these different things where it can really, really be helpful. I have a relative whose spouse is in a nursing home, I think, and they use Alexa to be able to communicate. So that is some of it, but it's still not that 24/7 or whatever, being able to monitor and being able to see what's going on.
Welcome
and it's really
to
good
AHG
because
Connects,
a lot of
where
the abuse,
voices,
whether it was the
information,
ones that I mentioned
and
that are injected
resources
with
are empowered
insulin,
intentionally.
or some of the other things. There was a man, oh my goodness, I have to think of his name, but he wound up killing like 40 people. He was giving them something that
Welcome to America's Heroes Group, our live digital media show. How you guys doing today? This is July, and July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I'm Sean Kramer, your host, Army National Guard veteran. And of course, we have with us Gigi Crowder, Executive Director of NAMI Contra Costa in California. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Health Illness Advocacy Group, founded by family members of people with mental illness. And we're going to talk about some things they're doing, some great stuff coming up. She's going to have a concert featuring Grammy Award winner Erica Campbell. How you doing today, Gigi?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I also have an update for you. I've been in the last week promoted up to the CEO of NAMI Contra Costa. So
wow,
excited about that.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. So what are you going to be in your responsibilities as CEO of NAMI Contra Costa?
Pretty much everything I was doing and didn't recognize I shouldn't be doing because it was an elevated position, but a lot more work with budgets and numbers and just better positioning ourselves strategically, and a lot more marketing and rubbing shoulders with other CEOs to help boost our funding.
I wish you success, and I know you're going to do a great job.
Thank you.
So tell us about this concert coming up. You have Erica Campbell. She's a Stella Award winning person. Also, she has a Grammy and a Stella Award. Tell us about how did you hook up with her and what's going on with this concert?
So several years ago, when COVID first reared its ugly head, she's the first lady at a church in Los Angeles, California, and they were looking to address the mental health challenges that people may be faced through COVID. And so last year we had Fred Hammond, and we had a pretty mixed audience, but I said, wow, if I got an opportunity to do it again, I would definitely use Erica Campbell, because in the work that we did before, she definitely has a heart for improving outcome for those who live with mental health challenges. So I got the second chance to do our healing through music. A lot of individuals rely on music as a healing source. And because we were in the month of July, a BIPOC mental health awareness, we're kind of erasing the word minority, because depending on where you're at, that definition can shift. So Black, Indigenous, people of color, named after B.B. Moore Campbell, who was a strong advocate in Southern California for the African American community, and us being more diligent about getting the services that we need. And it was named after her. So July, BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month, is actually in memory and to continue the legacy of B.B. Moore Campbell, a well-celebrated author.
Wow. Now, you mentioned COVID. You just mentioned to me, and I don't mind if you released that information, but you mentioned that you were also under the weather with COVID as well.
Yeah.
People still don't. I mean, it's been what now, 4 years, almost 5 years, and we're still. This is something that people don't really think about. I haven't really thought about COVID. And so is that something that we should be taking seriously still? And how was it this time around? Because you had COVID before, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I actually never had COVID with symptoms. So this was my first time. A large number of my staff had it. I guess this variation is called flirt. It did not flirt with me. It hit me head on. Headaches, throbbing headache, actually. And a lot of, it kind of can position you to have a little bit of fear, because the first round of COVID when it first introduced, we had a lot of loss in our community. And so we're starting to see in California, not following the national levels, but they have said that it's higher now than it had been since a year ago. So I just saw that headline. So I'm telling people in our office, we're taking the necessary precautions. Had a couple of staff members who had tested positive and had symptoms, but I thought I was invincible since I had been vaccinated. But when you have a new variant, sometimes you need to boost it up and take new precautions. And so, of course, now I'm much more diligent about supporting individuals to make sure they have the PPP, the face mask, all the stuff you need to heighten your safety toward it.
All the protective gear is really important.
Yes.
And then really just having it on your radar, I think, is important.
Yes.
Because, like I said, I mean, my girlfriend's been bugging me about making sure I get vaccinated, but I haven't kind of put it to the back burner. So I got 3 boosters. I should be good. But the reality is that you might be under the weather with something and not even realize what you even have. You're gonna get
Exactly.
You know, so I might have to rethink that and really start thinking about getting my boosters and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this concert is to raise money and awareness for mental illness and mental health. How successful was the last one? We talked about Fred Hammond's concert a little bit last time you were on our show.
Yes. Well, it was very successful because, I mean, just like we work with Mr. Fab, a recording artist that, leans toward hip hop, he's able to engage the urban male in a way that many therapists with their suits on wouldn't be able to do. And so now with Erica Campbell, we've seen that African-American women in particular have high numbers of depression, anxiety, and we wanted to make sure that we afforded them the opportunity in the same way we had a mixed crowd pretty much with Fred Hammond. But so far as I look at the ticket sales, they're primarily women, primarily African-American women, and they're very excited. So the outcome we had last time was that we had many more people utilize we have a warm line for people who are having a little bit of difficulty, not quite sure whether it's mental health or where to go. So we provide resources at these mental health awareness events or gospel concerts, and we have support groups. So we saw the numbers of participants increase dramatically after we started doing it. We had to add some more specific groups. Like we added a grief group because when people call and they share what their needs are, then we try and tailor to the needs of the individual. So we have a faith-based grief group now. We have a young adult group led by a female, and then we have a young adult group led by a male. And so just kind of catering to the needs, and they're well attended monthly.
Wow. And that's what I was hoping to hear, that people are now starting to seek help and participate in either whether they're going to do a group therapy or individual therapy. And one thing I've noticed lately over the last few years, there's so many more resources now through digital media to get help. We had professional athletes, actors come out and say that, I'm using or even advocating for and advertising for a lot of the self-help groups and a lot of the digital professional help groups that specialize in giving people counseling to conquer these mental health issues. So I'm glad to hear that people are actually out there taking advantage of it. What are some of the things that you mentioned? There's different sectors or different topics that people need help on, because people don't think about, I lost a family member, or I'm going through a serious breakup, or I'm going through a divorce. What are some of the things that people that people need to be aware of to make sure that they're taking care of their mental health? Because we always are taught to, we need to eat right, we need to exercise, but we always neglect how we think and how our mind is trained.
Yeah, one of the things that has come up as a reoccurring theme is also because NAMI was started with family members. If you're a family member and you have a loved one who you had particular hopes, dreams, and goals, and thought they were going to one day grow up and be, the first or female president of the United States, and then your child at the age of 18, 19 is hit with this mental illness, then sometimes you have to grieve the loss of expectations. And so one of our groups started with that, like defining grief for family members whose loved ones have this horrible diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, etc. and just embracing the fact that despite living with this, of course, there's opportunities for the individual to connect with the purpose, but working through that process and recognizing that perhaps the doctor you thought you were going to have may be able to work in a hospital setting, but may not have the wherewithal because of the mental illness to take the rigorous courses needed to become a doctor. And I'm not saying that that couldn't happen, but it's less likely with the more severe mental health diagnosis.
Wow. Now, when people are seeking mental health help, what are some of the misconceptions people might have about it? Because do people come in thinking, well, if I talk to them a few times, I'll be cured, or do people maybe don't do the things or that they're supposed to when they first start out?
Yeah, I think sometimes when we see this recurring cycling of individuals, what we see is individuals often take the meds, feel better, and think they don't need the meds anymore. And so I've seen individuals respond pretty well to a medication regimen, even with all of the side effects. But then over time, they stop taking their meds. They might start drinking again. Self-medicating is a big deal in mental health. So about 60% of the folks who live with mental illness have a co-occurring with substance use. And so that, of course, because of the brain chemistry for someone who lives with a mental illness, that's a no-no, So we see individuals who really kind of in some way relapse because start experiencing symptoms again because they're not going to their therapist. They're not putting everything in their toolkit they need to have a successful, healthy life despite living with a mental illness. So, and the stigma, of course, associated with having a mental illness, the side effects of the medication is pretty difficult for some people to manage. And so they, it's really working it out with the psychiatrist or the prescribing individual. The prescribing of your med individual is not always a psychiatrist. And finding what works, because I know in the African American community, I hear a lot of the males say they're over medicated, and you can kind of see it. And so you wouldn't want to take a med that causes you to kind of lose touch. So just having the conversations to find the balance. African Americans tend to metabolize their medications faster than other ethnic groups.
You mentioned
slower.
Slower? Okay.
Yes.
So what you mentioned some side effects. What are some of the common side effects that a person who's taking medications could maybe look out for, so that way that they can know whether or not they need to have a conversation with their therapist?
One of the horrible side effects, which would make it even difficult for someone like me, is it actually slows down your metabolism. So there's often a lot of weight gain for a lot of the medications, and individuals don't like to take the meds if they feel like they're going to gain all of this weight. Long-term use of the heavy doses can cause illness called tardive dyskinesia. And it's like the shaking of the hands. And that kind of, when you're in the public and you can't control your hand movement, that could be somewhat embarrassing for individuals. And then there's, besides the weight loss and the more severe tardive dyskinesia, there's a host of other side effects, just like any other medication that you take. Might cause sweating, loss of sleep, body rash for some individuals. Some of them actually cause diabetes. And so you have to be really careful and have that conversation with your doctor. Too often when people live with mental illness, we start treating above the neck. And so said statistic is individuals who live with severe mental illness who take a long-term use of medication generally die 15 to 20 years earlier than the general population.
Wow. That's
wild. Yeah.
Now, hearing something like that, I mean, that might make somebody not want to even take the medication. Why people don't want to take the medications. And then, to your point, you mentioned, I read an article not too long ago that talked about how drinking alcohol plus taking medications could really make things hard on your body, because your liver is trying to clean your body. Now it has to deal with the toxicity of alcohol, plus if you're taking any other drugs, hopefully not, but then the medication you're taking.
Yes.
So that could be hard on your kidney and hard on your liver.
Yeah, and we learned that some individuals who, tested positive for COVID, the COVID medications interfered with their psychiatric a psychotropic meds. So they have to just sweat it out without being able to take the meds that could give them relief. And so it could be pretty serious for individuals.
How effective is therapy? Talking to people that have more of the severe types of mental illness, like schizophrenia or any type of other psychotic event. What are some of the things? Does therapy and talking through things help?
Yeah, just like with anyone else, right? So if you're bottling things up, it can actually heighten anxiety and depression. But if you're able to talk, for those who get the opportunity, most individuals, when they live with mental health challenges, income-wise, they can't afford the high price. And if they're in a county or governmental system, they only have so many to go around. But we have noted that those who do get an opportunity to have therapy, the right meds, and structured work day, or they might be going to a program, housing, they tend to do a whole lot better than those that have missing pieces of that. And so those who have therapy, what we've tried to do at NAMI across the nation, but specifically at NAMI, is we complement the therapy with the support groups, because learning from the skill set of peers who've been there where you have, where you are now, but they've gotten through it, is pretty beneficial for some people. And some people respond better to lived experience support than they do professional book knowledge support.
And so when you have a family member who has, whether it's severe or maybe not as severe mental health issues, but they will not go to therapy, they will not go see help, or maybe they started seeking help, maybe they need medication, stop taking the medication, won't go see the therapist anymore because they think that they're doing okay, or they think that they're cured. How does a family member, or how does a family try to change that action, or try to get them to encourage them to go back into therapy and get back on the horse?
Well, we have national signature programs that kind of give family members and the individuals tools to support them if they're supporting someone. Of course, if someone has a decision as an adult that they do not want to take their meds, it's very little someone can do if someone decides they're not going to do the therapy. And surprisingly, a lot of people don't have this conversation, but for a lot of the folks we work with, they actually turn to their faith and spiritual practice and will put them higher up on the list of a need as to be included in their tools for balance. So prayer has been identified. Reading Holy Scripture has been identified as an essential wellness tool for a lot of people over traditional therapy.
There's a lot of studies that show that having a faith-based system a lot of times is an actual motivator, and it helps the person get out of different situations, whether it be physical or mental health.
Yeah.
So the data is definitely strong in there. Even this being in the environment, the changing the environment for someone has a huge impact on their mental health, and even in the very extreme cases.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate sometimes you see. I had when we first started doing American Heroes Group, I actually used to drive down under this viaduct, and there was a homeless man that slept under this viaduct, and he had an American flag hanging over his camp, you could call it his tent, whatever. And so one day we decided to go talk to him. So me and Manny actually are one of our guys who work here. He brought his camera, went out there. We talked to him, and we could tell he had some cognitive issues. His family had been looking for him for 2 years. He was living on the street. We actually were able to reunite him to his family. Believe it or not, his sister was in the military, was in the Army, and actually she was instrumental in trying to get him back connected with his family. But that was one of those situations where he was getting help, was in a system that gave him housing, gave him shelter. Somehow he fell off the horse, or he got disconnected from that, and then literally just disappeared from the family. And was missing for 2 years. Now he's in a more of a structured environment, and because of his actions, he's now ward of the. He's not his own. He has to have a guardian. So he has a guardian actually that has to oversee what he's doing and make sure that he's taking his meds and things along those lines. How difficult is it for family members, if that's necessary, to become a guardian for someone who is not able to take care of themselves?
Well, in California, we have Care Court. So it was an initiative passed that the governor supported. and it comes with housing. So I was just in a meeting yesterday. Well, the decision makers were deciding how will this roll out in my county. It's been a tiered approach to rolling it out in California, and Contra Costa County is supposed to roll out in December. So what I was sharing with the individuals was generally that's going to be spearheaded by the family members. We get calls every day in our office from family members who have loved one. They know where they hang out at, but they know that they're not in a place. A lot of them self-medicate with alcohol, drugs, and other, things they shouldn't be doing. So it wouldn't be a good idea for them to live. Often it's with aging family members, so they can't bring them into their home. So this care court idea would be that the family member would file a petition for the person to become, kind of like with children, a ward of the court. And the court would mandate that the individual has to follow a regimen, but included in that is housing. And one of the comments I made yesterday was that we make assumptions that people don't want the care. And whenever we go out and feed the unsheltered, we run into large groups of individuals who just have never had the opportunity. So I'm not surprised at the success you guys had with the individual, because sometimes when they're lost, it's up to people who are in a better state to kind of guide them back to a place where they can have more stability, housing, wellness, and sometimes just the black robe effect, as we say, seeing a judge who said, hey, you don't do these things, you're going to go to jail, has made a difference in some of the programs where the person has been criminal justice involved. So it's this balance. They're adults, so they have the right to make choice. There's some people I've run into who said the voices are louder in housing. I like to be out because they live with such a severe symptoms of their mental illness. They like to be outdoors. And then there's many more who I said, what if I can get you housing, regular meals, all of this? Would you like that? They usually will say yes. And we also, through COVID, reunited individuals with their families because of now the family was more understanding that this is a mental illness that I was dealing with. And then the individuals are like, I also am hearing about this horrible illness, COVID, and I don't want to be away from my family. I want the support too. But we have to use what I call a harm reduction model. You can't expect a person who's been on the street having a very difficult time, often self-medicating, to just stop everything and go live in a home without the skill set and just magically everything's okay. No, a lot of the individuals who got keys to hotels and etc. ended up back on the streets because they were told you can't drink, you can't do this. Has to kind of be ushered into a place where they slowly, wean off of the things that weren't serving them and geared toward the things that would position them to have a healthier wellness and improved outcome.
So that tells me that, their family members really have to have a lot of patience when dealing with someone with any kind of cognitive issue or mental illness. And there's a scale, there's a spectrum. It's like anything else. You have people that have this slight issues like depression, or maybe they're going through trauma, and you have the extreme stuff like schizophrenia and all these other types of things. So what are some of the coping mechanisms that maybe family members need to develop or think about developing, and maybe they need therapy to even get to help them help someone get into therapy?
I've often said, if you're a family member of someone who has severe mental illness and you've been on that roller coaster with them, hospitalizations and such, you probably do live with a level of PTSD, because it's not norm to see a kid who may have been 4.0 student and doing great, and then now less than a year later, you're having to call the cops because they're having behaviors that suggest, that you could be at harm or they could be at harm. So that's a grief process that parents go through, and some fare better than others while they're going through that. So that's why some of our courses, like Family to Family, kind of teach the family members about mental illness and what they could expect. So it prepares them so they won't be on that roller coaster ride in such a way where their health is compromised. But I have seen a lot of family members not do so well because they love their children. There's a lot of grief, a lot of mourning of what could have been. when their loved one is, on that roller coaster. Because there are some individuals, no matter what, they're very compliant with their meds. They will go to the therapist, and the symptoms are just such that they don't get a lot of relief.
Wow. Now let's still going to more of a uplifting topic. So the concert, back to the concert you got coming up.
Yes.
You have about 6 minutes left.
Yes.
Less than 5 minutes. So when is the concert? How do people get tickets? Tell us what people are going to hear and see when they get these tickets.
Yeah, so on July 27th in the city of Pittsburgh, California, Erica Campbell is going to be toward the end of the program. But the first part of the program, I always start with this, like the purpose of the day and then the icebreaker. The icebreaker gives audience members an opportunity to think about the songs that make them feel better when they're having a difficult time. So we have a dynamic church we're going to be doing it at. And so they're already practicing the age group will be across the board. So some people will have an old spiritual hymn they grew up when they were 7 years old hearing, and that's the song that they like when they're having a difficult time. And some will have more modern songs. I share with people.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group. This time with our live show, America's Heroes Group Roundtable live digital media show. July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I'm an Army National Guard veteran, Sean Claiborne. And we have, once again, our partner with us, Stephanie Collada. Stephanie Collada is a U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant First Class, veteran of the regular and reserves. And she's also the founder and creator of the Veterans Legislative Voice. How you doing today, Steph? Don't have audio. We're trying to get audio back up. There you are.
Okay. Hi. If you can hear me, I'm doing all right. How about you?
Doing good. Doing good. So we had a discussion. We want to talk about some things have occurred over the weekend. Everybody knows about the assassination attempt that happened with Donald Trump. Also, we have some topics about Project 2025 and a lot of confusion and a lot of questions about that as well. Give us kind of a background. You've been reading that document and you've been kind of getting to the nuts and bolts of what Project 2025 is. There's a lot of information out there on the internet about it. There is some misinformation, however, and some things that that are scary and are very accurate about what it is been trying to do for the country, and also how its new vision for government is being proposed, if you want to call it that. What is your take on Project 2025?
Well, Project 2025 is a document that was made by the Heritage Foundation. And for a little bit more context on the Heritage Foundation, it was founded actually at the same time that President Reagan was elected into office. And they created this organization to promote conservative policies, to really improve conservative politics and really change the United States. And they created a document like Project 2025 for President Reagan. And President Reagan actually is known for changing the United States government towards more of conservative policies that we still have today.
Like we lost your audio a little bit.
Oh,
there we are. You're back on.
Okay. So President Reagan's policies had changed the United States to what they knew it then, and it's much still in place today. So the Heritage Foundation wanted to try to do it again for the next conservative president, and hence Project 2025.
So what are some of the things that's in it? So there's people are saying that it's going to limit powers for certain people, particularly women, minorities. Also changing the way that the president gets his information, the people that are around the president and advises the president. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's a lot of things in it because it is over 900 pages. So it centralizes first on the executive branch, and it tries to centralize all power that can be done towards the executive branch. So the president has more power and more blind loyalty, basically, that his immediate staff and other staff further down are supposed to enable the president, not to question what he wants, what he desires, and what he believes the policies of this government should be. So it's more of a blind loyalty in that. But then if there is some snafu, something goes wrong, it is also the staff's responsibility to be the scapegoat and not the president.
That seems kind of strange.
Yes, it's very autocratic and very fascist. If people remember their government lessons.
And then this is on the piggyback of what's happened in the Supreme Court recently, because recently the Supreme Court has given and expanded the powers of the president. The idea that the president's not liable for any official acts, that he doesn't have to worry about, going to jail or doing anything if he breaks the law, as long as he's president, and as long as he's doing it as a presidential act, which could be almost anything. He could shoot somebody, as some justices have even said, and get away with it.
Yes, he could order SEAL Team 6 to go ahead and do something and take out his political opponent. And since he was as president and ordered SEAL Team 6 to do something, he did it in his official responsibility and is not liable for any criminal or civil actions against him. So
it's now you overlay that with something like Project 2025. It seems like a recipe for definitely something to go wrong. We're almost like as if we're moving into a theocracy or as you mentioned, or some kind of fascist type of autocracy.
Yes, it is. It's very scary when you get more into depth of Project 2025, of how much more power the executive branch they plan to have. But the thing is that this is so different from what our founding fathers really wanted out of our government. They didn't want another king, another elected king. That's the reason why the executive branch is technically weaker than the other branches, than the legislative branch, who has a lot of power. I mean, they do budgets, they do laws, they do a lot of things because they are the elected officials of this government who we elected, who we believe should be doing majority of the work. That's kind of the thing that really slaps in the face of what the founding fathers really wanted.
Now, some people are concerned that it also might limit powers of the individual, of citizens.
Yes.
How does it affect women in particular? How does it affect LGBTQ? What are some of the things you've seen in that?
Well, it actually goes into place to try to fight against the culture wars and the anti-woke, and try to promote more of an anti-woke movement. They specifically talk about having drag shows in the middle of children's libraries on the first page of the introduction. So they're really trying to fearmonger a lot of people into believing that these things need to happen. And so then it causes more fear, and then also probably more violence towards more of the LGBTQ, more women and things like that. It does limit a lot of the reproductive health. For veterans specifically, they directed a point towards when the VA decided to start providing abortions for veterans that are specifically for those that need an abortion because of what they have with their service-connected conditions. So, for example, if a female veteran is on mental health medications for PTSD that they may have gotten while they're in service, combat, military sexual trauma, what have you. When you're on those type of mental health medications, you cannot cut off immediately. A lot of them you cannot do that. You have to wean off. And if you do, if you do cut off immediately, you can have a lot of side effects. But then if you stay on the medications, it can also damage the fetus inside the mother. So you're in that type of position of what should you do? And if you take the veteran off of those mental health medications, it can increase the risk for preeclampsia, for suicide, for other mental health issues that can cause much more problems down the line. So Project 2025 would remove the ability for reproductive health for veterans by the VA, which technically by the Code of Federal Regulations, the VA is actually allowed to provide. It's in there. They just haven't been providing it for many years, and no one has called them out on it. Now the VA is finally doing it because of the reversal of Roe v. Wade.
Wow. And then I've read parts of Project 2025, the document. There's a version of pornography evidently in the document.
Yes, it actually outlaws all pornography. It does not specifically say what is pornography, what classifies as pornography. So it could be showing a woman's ankle back to the Victorian age, could be pornography. So it can cause a lot of issues in its vagueness. And the other thing, the interesting thing about the pornography point is that majority of those statements are in the introduction, but then it's not included anywhere else in Project 2025. So we don't know whether, because there are different sections for the Department of Justice, for the law, for all sorts of different things, for media. They don't have any other inclusions of pornography in those sections. So we don't know where they want to make that lie in the different agencies or departments of the government.
And one of the things they mentioned also was getting rid of the Department of Education. Is that correct?
Yes, the complete dissolution of it, and it would mostly lie on it was privatized for education. So those in the upper class and the high middle class will be fine because they can go towards privatized education in those areas that have higher income. But the problem is that the lower income communities will have to depend on much lower quality of schools. And the other interesting fact that they add in there between the Department of Defense and also the education chapter, I think in chapter 11, it's the requirement of the ASVAB testing for military. So they require a student to pass the ASVAB to pass high school, to receive a high school diploma. And it also includes a introduction of military training and kind of a walkthrough process, more advanced version of our ROTC programs that we have, and try to make it more mandatory for everyone. Which, when you take the new information about the dissolution of the Department of Education, the privatization of the schools, and then how the lower income communities are going to really be affected, you can also see a separation of races, honestly, and classes between the military and within the military ranks. So those that are more white and more affluent communities, they will most likely be military officers. Those that are people of color and also from lower income communities, they're most likely going to be enlisted.
Wow. Now, Trump is trying to distance himself from Project 2025. He's kind of downplayed it a lot. However, he picked a vice president, JD Vance, who is more MAGA than Trump.
In some ways,
is there any credit to Trump? Maybe not. He's trying to distance himself. Is that something is there more to it than that? Aren't some of the people that actually wrote this Project 2025 part of his administration?
Yes, actually, almost half of all of the authors that have written Project 2025 have actually worked for the Trump administration and also during his campaign, including the two editors that had edited the entire Project 2025. Both of them exclusively worked for President Trump. So he knows these people. He's appointed these people. He's gotten briefings from these people because these are undersecretaries. These are people that are within his cabinet that he knows and has worked with day to day. And people have found many photographs of him walking with these people individually throughout the White House, off of the lawns and everything.
Wow.
Mhm.
So has Trump changed at all since his assassination attempt? Is he kind of, do you see any sign of him changing his tune a little bit, particularly since he was so divisive over the years with his rhetoric and promoting violence and talking down to people and things along those lines, to the point where somebody tried to take his life?
Yeah.
So is he changed at all? Have you seen any hints of that?
I see it in small ways, but honestly, to me, it influenced more of everyone else that's around Trump. I don't see that influenced him very much, because he is calling for unity. He's calling for unity mostly within the Republican Party, which he has had trouble with because he is very divisive. One of the interesting facts about the shooter was that he was a registered Republican. He did donate later for the Democratic Party, but his family is also registered Republicans. So it's an interesting fact when you put that into context of what happens. And then after the assassination attempt, you have many people who were his opponents in the primaries and have called him out on a lot of things and said very terrible things about him. Now they come forward calling for unity within the Republican Party to support President Trump. So it's more, I see more of the effect on everybody else around Trump than actually Trump himself.
So walk me through a little bit about some of the things that scare you the most about Project 2025.
So there are a lot of contradictions within 2025. One of the things that has been included in there is more of the mass personnel manning. There are some misinformation, images, things out there that's in social media that says that it calls for a 50% manning reduction within the first year, and then a 75% over the next 4 years. I haven't found those specific numbers.
Is that, so they reduced the government by 50% in the first year?
Yes. And then 75% over the next 44 years of the presidential term, which I have not found those specific numbers, but I have found that they said that they do want a reduction in salaries and bonuses, which honestly, and for someone that's actually used to work for the government as a civilian, they're not paid enough in the beginning. So a lot of times I barely lived when I was a GS7 in the middle of, Podunk, Pennsylvania, not near Butler. I promise, not near Butler, but in other place in Pennsylvania. And I barely survived. I had to go back to school because I can get the Montgomery GI Bill and post 9/11 to get the extra income and stipend, so then I can actually survive. I barely survived on GS7 pay. And it was just me. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have a partner or anyone else to depend on me. So if you're looking at that and looking at trying to reduce manning and also salaries of our government employees, you're going to have a lot of issues from there. You're going to lose people. They're going to retire early. They're going to go elsewhere where they can get better money and better benefits, because that's one of the things that we had the issues. The VA has a huge issue of losing doctors and specialists to other civilian sector jobs because they have a higher pay that the VA just can't pay for.
But I would imagine that there's no talk of cutting defense spending.
No, it actually says the exact opposite. It calls for more spending. So then for more infrastructure, for more planes, more ships, more technology, more people recruitment, much more things to spend money on. But then it also calls for less government oversight over the funding, over the spending. And the problem is that the Department of Defense has yet to actually pass an audit, and I think over a decade.
Wow.
If you can't pass an audit, how can you actually do less government oversight? It makes no sense.
That's really kind of scary.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it is.
So what's your take on JD Vance?
So JD Vance was one of the first people to be a never Trumper. He was one of the people that coined the term and said that he would always be a never Trumper. But then he changed. And you know what? I've heard re-Trumper is what they call for the people that have actually gone over to bend the knee. And for me, I have issues with people that have done that, because if they're willing to do that and change their ideals and their principles, what else are they going to change it for? Because if you're going to change your principles for somebody else, especially someone who has been convicted for fraud, for a bunch of other very bad things, I'm going to question their values and their principles.
So what are some of the things that are still left on the docket for Trump's cases? One of them was dismissed. The legal documents he had in his house, that's thrown out. He's found on the 34 counts, felon for his using money improperly and putting fraudulent things in his with his hush money to Stormy Daniels. That stuck. What else is coming up?
Election fraud. Fraud. A lot of people say hush money case, but it's actually was technically election fraud was what he did, because he paid somebody to be quiet when they could have talked and everybody could have found out more information about this guy before the election, before they decided to cast a vote for him. And that's actually against the FEC.
Now, is it? Do you think it's possible that Trump might get any prison time with that when he gets sentenced in September?
It's very possible, especially since he has violated the gag order so many times. He has not shown any remorse for what he's done. Instead, he's done the exact opposite and spread numerous lies about the case itself, about what the judge has said, because he said the gag order said that he couldn't actually testify within court. That's a complete lie, because that's not what the gag order is about. He's allowed to speak for himself. That's a constitutional right. He can go up there into court and stand up for himself and try to give testimony, but he didn't. And that was his own choice. That wasn't anything else that had put in there. So it's possible, but I doubt he would do that the judge would do that. But we'll have to see. I don't think they scheduled a new hearing of when they were going to do that, because now they have to relook at all of the evidence that was used from the immunity, because the immunity case, the Supreme Court here decision about the immunity, because a few of the pieces of evidence that was used in the election fraud was things that happened while he was president. So it's his tweets, it's conversations he had with one of his employees, because one of his employees had testified against him on their knowledge about the hush money between him and Stormy Daniels that happened while he was in office. Those type of things could have swayed the jury's decision on, deciding that he's guilty. But the thing is that that's what the judge needs to find out, is that if that evidence could have swayed the jury, and if it did, they have to toss it and they have to do a new one. Or the judge could say, this wasn't enough and they had enough stuff to say that he was guilty of, so I'm going to keep the Senate or keep the conviction. So we got to see and find out what judge is going to decide.
Now, is there any possibility that he might be held accountable for January 6th at this point?
I severely doubt it, because the immunity case that from the Supreme Court has to deal with the January 6th and everything that has gone along with that. The Judge Chuckin for the DC court still has to decide whether what indictments is part of his actual official duties and what was him as a private citizen, technically as a presidential candidate. So you have to separate that, and then that she has to make that decision. Whatever she decides, President Trump, if he doesn't like what she decides, he's going to appeal it. It goes to district. It can go to Supreme Court. It's going to be bouncing around before the election even gets here. So I severely doubt that that's going to happen. And then the classified documents case, that was dismissed. But there is a couple of things that Jack Smith can do. Jack Smith, he can honestly get a new indictment for he can get somebody else to put in the indictment that was actually someone that was Congress appointed or someone of that stature to actually put in for that indictment and then go forward. Or he can actually say, he can appeal to the district court, say what the judge Eileen Cannon had decided was incorrect, and now he could also try to get her dismissed and get a whole new judge in place. So
Wow.
he's got a couple of decisions to make for that one.
Wow. So what's your take on what's happening on the Democratic side? Do you see, we have about 3 minutes left, do you see Biden carrying this thing through? You think he's going to, because even the idea's been floated, why not just have Kamala Harris and Biden flip? Have Kamala Harris be the president or run for president and have Biden serve as vice president?
It's possible. I saw new polls today that if Kamala Harris leads on the ticket, it's actually a 10-point drop underneath Trump. So right now, Trump and Biden are tied. But if Kamala Harris comes in, they could drop by 10 points. That's a lot to move before November. So that's a pretty risky decision right now.
Yeah.
So one of the things that has just happened was that the Democratic National Committee, they wanted to actually get a virtual vote of the delegates, kind of informally, get that done so then they can have everything in place. So President Biden would be the candidate for Ohio, because that was the place that they were going to have an issue with, because the convention's not happening until after the Ohio deadline. Well, Ohio just changed that. They extended the deadline to after the convention. So the DNC doesn't have to do the virtual vote. We're hoping and waiting to see if they're going to push that off a little bit, because right now there's a few Democrat elected officials that want to wait on that because they don't want to decide to go with President Biden yet. They want to see how people feel, the polls, how he's going to look in the next couple of months, the next month, to see if he's going to look more vibrant, if he is going to look much better and not look as old. We'll see. And this could be a very historic Democratic National Convention, because they could call for him to step down. And that has never happened before. So we might see something very historic in the convention coming up for the Democrats.
And I'll be here in Chicago. But thanks, Stephanie, again, for all the information you give us. Always give us some great information. Audience, make sure you like and subscribe as we are going live on YouTube. So go on YouTube, check out our old channels, check out our old shows. You can also see us on Facebook and americashg.org as well. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Stephanie, talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, guys.
Intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Joe. July is American Diabetes and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I'm Sean Kramer, your host, Army National Guard veteran, and we have a partner with us today. That's David Malenik. He's a CPA and president and founder of Katz Malenik, a CPA tax firm and a military family member. we're going to talk about some things that are really important and it concerns your money. And that is July updates, tax filings, and also deadlines for taxes. So tell us, Dave, how you doing?
Oh, doing okay, Sean. Yeah, it's this is a crazy time of year. We got you got not-for-profits that need to do filings right now, and then also you got to if you're on extension, we're getting close to those deadlines. September 15th is only less than 2 months away, and October 15th is less than 3 months away. So we're coming right up on these filing deadlines.
So tell us again, like what do you guys do better as a CPA firm than what you would say most CPAs do? What sets you guys apart from the competition?
We are what we do that's better than the competition is we take a holistic approach to your taxes and finances. And in doing so, we are able to consider all the options and get you the best results. So an example of that would be, let's say someone comes in and has a 1099-C. They had a foreclosure on their property, and they got done with the foreclosure, but they still owed some money to the bank. So the bank said, you know what, we're going to cancel that. And you think that's over, but it's not. So now they're going to come back and say, now you have taxable income. Let's say it's $200,000. Well, now that's potentially a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 tax bill. But usually in those situations, we can get that income completely excluded from the taxpayer's income, bring that down to zero, and bring that, or in a lot of cases, we can even still get them a refund. Wow.
Now, has there been any major changes that we should be aware of in the way taxes are filed and tax code, and anything?
It's not necessarily major changes, but the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as everyone knows, put in a lot of different tax cuts for both for middle class families and for businesses. But some of the business tax cuts are being gradually stepped down and phased out. Mm-hmm. So one example of that is the bonus depreciation. So it was up until this year, 2023. Since the passage of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, you were able to claim 100% bonus depreciation on any asset that you bought as a business. So if you bought a vehicle for your business that was $100,000, you claim it in that year, get the full write-off, and no problem. Okay. But now, this year, it has stepped down to 80%. Next year, it's stepping in 2024. It steps down for 2024 filing, steps down to 60%. 2025 filing steps down to 40%. 2026 filing steps down to 20%. And then it just phases out completely.
Wow. So what can people do to try to kind of counteract that reduction in savings?
So there is a different way to, provided that you're a small business, which is most of what most people that are operating businesses out there are. If you're not buying like $2 million plus worth of assets every year, which not a lot of people can afford to do, you can actually take something called a Section 179 deduction and get that same 100% depreciation in the year. So you can still get that effect. It's just a different section of the code that allows you to do it.
Okay. And once again, how do people get a hold of you if they have questions or want to, get some consultation?
Well, we are Katz Milanic. You can visit us at www.katzmilanic.com, or you can give us a call at our office at 708-914-8220. And we're located in Homewood, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Now, particularly for Illinois residents, I know we're a national podcast, but particularly for Illinois residents, because a lot of our audience base still from the radio station and things like that are in Illinois and in Indiana as well. What are some things that we need to know about on the state side for taxes?
State, so in Illinois specifically, there's a couple of things related to kids if you are an Illinois resident. One would be if you send your child to a private school, you can get up to a $750 tax credit for that. The other would be if you're saving for college for them and you do it through a 529 plan, specifically I think it's the Bright Start Illinois plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
if you do it through that plan, you get a dollar for dollar tax, not tax deduction, but income deduction on your return. So you could do up to $10,000 for an individual. For a married filing joint couple, you can get up to $20,000, and that would reduce your income, which would then effectively 5% of that is going to be a tax savings. Another thing is property tax credit. 5% of your property taxes are given back to you as a tax credit on Illinois income tax returns.
Can you hear me?
So if you're a homeowner, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we're going to do that last comment because everything on my screen is blanked out. I'm not sure if that happened with Shekiah or if that was just you or
okay.
What. So that last question. So what are some of the things that people in Illinois need to be aware of? And also,
okay. Yes. So in Illinois, a couple of things for kids. If you take your kids to a private school, you can get a tuition credit. Actually, also public school, there are some credits that qualify, but you can get some expenses that qualify, but you can get up to $750 of a tax credit that is just a direct dollar for dollar credit. Well, it's 4-to-1, so you have to spend like $3,000 to get the $750, and then the 529 plans. If you do a Bright Start plan with Illinois specifically, you can have a deduction up to $10,000 of income for individuals or $20,000 for married filing joint per child.
Okay.
And that will reduce your income that will reduce your tax liability by 5% of whatever you contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing for Indiana, except for they do a direct tax credit, so it's like 10% of the 10% of the amount you contribute, and obviously you have to use Indiana's 529 plan for that one if you're in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in Illinois, the property tax credit. So if you're a homeowner and you pay property taxes, 5% of your property taxes are given back to you as a income tax credit on your tax return.
Is it easier now than a few years ago to save money in taxes, or is it a little more complicated?
Well, the tax code doesn't really get easier. I mean, basically the more sources and types of income you have, the more complicated your taxes become. Because obviously, if you just have a W-2, it's a pretty straightforward tax return. It's just whatever you made, whatever you withheld, whatever your tax liability is against whatever you withheld. Either you have a refund or a balance due. It's pretty straightforward. If you have a business, it gets a little bit more complicated because now you have all the you have to claim your revenue, yes, but then you have all the expenses that you're allowed. There are certain types of tax credits that are allowed, everything like that. And yes, also there are tax credits for individuals and businesses, always changing. One example of that this year, the residential energy credit. It used to be that you could claim a $500 credit for your entire lifetime for residential energy credit. They changed that this year to where not only can you exceed $500, you can exceed $500 in 1 year. So I've actually gotten a few people like $2,000 or $3,000 of residential energy credits this year because they had improved the windows on their home. They improved the doors on their home. They've gotten they did insulation on their home. They put in a heating and air conditioning unit. They put in a hot water heater. there's all sorts of different things that will qualify for that residential energy credit. So the tax code is designed to encourage home ownership and having kids. So those are the things on the individual side that will get you credits, and then on the business side, things that promote that as well as like retirement plans and actually a thing I've been working on a lot recently is research and development credits, which apply to pretty much every business segment. You would think it's only like a technology thing, but it's not. You can get that. You get that as a grocery store, as a restaurant, as a trucking business. You just have to change a process in your system and have some costs related to that change. And then that will get you a dollar for dollar tax credit. Okay. Which can save people thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands. I've gotten over 100,000 for a company.
Wow. Are there limits to how much you can donate to charities or nonprofits?
Yes. So the limitation is based on your adjusted gross income. So, I mean, there's not really a limit. They can't stop you from donating more, right? But in terms of what you can actually claim for your taxes, there is a limitation. Specifically, it's going to be 50% of your AGI. So let's say I make $200,000 and I decide that I want to donate $150,000 of that, right? Mm-hmm. So I would have $200,000 showing as taxable income, and then I would have $100,000 of a charitable deduction with a $50,000 carryover into the following year. Okay. So they're not going to not give you credit for it. They're just going to require you to carry anything above 50% over to the next year.
And the reason why I asked that question, because there was a few, unfortunately, a few politicians in the state of Illinois who ran into some trouble doing that because they were donating time and donating things that maybe weren't.
Oh, time. Yeah, you can't do that as a professional, unfortunately. That is one of my biggest hang-ups on things myself, because I donate a lot of my time to charitable causes. But unfortunately, I can't, it's not like, because I can bill a client for my time, right? Mm. And then I get paid for that time. Unfortunately, I can't say, oh, well, I donated my time and I bill it $250 an hour or whatever it is. So now I donated 4 hours. So now I get $1,000 charitable deduction. Unfortunately, the IRS doesn't let you do that.
Thanks for clearing that up. Hopefully some politicians are listening out there.
Yeah, keep them out of some trouble, huh? Yeah. And if they need help with that, they can absolutely feel free to give me a call, 708-914-8220. I'm happy to advise them.
I appreciate your time, Dave. You always give us some great information, and people really do value the information and hard work you put in. You're one of the few guys out there that really take this holistic approach to helping people out seriously, and we appreciate that. America's Heroes Group and the public and the audience appreciates it as well.
All right. Thanks for the time today, Sean.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. You too. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll see you next week.